UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely.
Welcome to it. It is Remote Radio Week, day 5 of 5. Of course, this has been organized by UNESCO in partnership with the World Health Organization. Remote Radio Week is an online training program that's aimed at building the capacity of local radio stations to produce accurate and professional radio content in the event of containment measures or emergencies, including financial difficulties. And you can actually watch the videos from the past week as well as today. Just go to remoteradioweek.org. And starting the final day off under the overarching theme of audio everywhere, we're looking at streaming, podcast hosting, hyper distribution, and social networks, is an organization called Free Press Unlimited. Now, Free Press Unlimited, independent, reliable, and timely information to everybody worldwide. The organization is based in the Netherlands, and it's the world, as I said, and they work together with many different partners, and they also organize campaigns and to press freedom, reliable information, and independent journalism. Without further ado, we do have a video for you that's featuring Leon, Annelies, and Gaelle from the organization.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leon Willems, and I'm Director of Policy and Programs of Free Press Unlimited. Today, we're talking about the importance of radio in times of crisis. And with us, we have two distinguished guests from Free Press Unlimited. Annelies Langelaar, Project Program Coordinator, Southeast Asia, and Gaelle Weigel, who is working for us in Africa on a very important project regarding the pandemic. Annelies, radio, why is radio so important in crisis situation?
Because radio, especially the radio networks we work with through our partners, are able to give life-saving information. It depends, of course, on the crisis. So you have natural disasters, you have COVID-19, or you have a conflict. So in each crisis, of course, the function is a bit different, but overall, it gives the people life-saving information and directs them what to do, where to get assistance, where to get help.
But isn't radio an old-fashioned medium? Why is radio so important in, for example, Bangladesh?
The radio we work with are remote radios, and that's basically, of course, there's internet now, but if there is a flood or a cyclone, these infrastructures might be disrupted or broken. And radio is relatively fast to build up again. Besides that, the community radios, especially in Bangladesh, serve also a sort of community hub. So people also go there. They know where to go if they need help. So these radios serve multiple functions, actually.
Sort of like a public space,
yes.
the station itself.
Yeah.
How is that working in Sub-Saharan Africa, Gaelle? You're working on a big project to counter disinformation during the COVID crisis. Mm-hmm. How does radio have a function in that regard?
Well, in many countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, radio remains one of important means of access to information, even more so in rural area where there is, the internet penetration is very low, or where there is no electricity. Sometimes, or oftentimes, radio is the only means at hand for those populations. So in the COVID-19 project, we work with organizations across 17 countries across the Sub-Saharan Africa.
In the Corona crisis, you have a lot of disinformation. Mm-hmm. People are saying the wildest things about the virus. Mm-hmm. People are spreading rumors about how to cure it. How can radio, for example, in East Congo, let's just give an example, mm-hmm. how can it address these things? How can it provide people with what is right and what is wrong?
So based on the the experiences that our partners have about the Ebola crisis, for example, or other health crises that they have faced in the past, they have built up on that to better address this COVID pandemic. So a lot of production or content production that they are doing, they are inviting health specialists to train the journalists in terms of how to better understand this virus and to how to report on it to the population. And they're also hosting radio shows where they invite those health specialists, and those health specialists are being interviewed, and they're also getting calling from the audiences with whom they can interact live.
So one of the aspects of the project, I think it's called Together for Reliable Information.
Yes.
We're working with resources from the World Health Organization. Are people learning from each other in this project also?
Very much so. I think one of the elements that we are learning from this pandemic is that people need to come together, because it's not only one sector that has the information, but the journalists or even the government and the health specialists need to come together and share the information together. So radio, in a way, is this place where they can meet and where they can have those conversations and where they can also interact with the local communities.
Now, one of the aspects of radio that we know, so we're talking now about community radio stations, a public space in the middle of where people live. But in times of conflict, this place doesn't exist because people are in conflict. And how does the radio play a role in such conditions? I'm thinking, for example, recently we had the situation of Myanmar.
Yes.
There were radio projects in Myanmar. How does radio work then?
I think radio in the countries we work with or the countries that are in conflict, they give facts and try to, like Gaelle said, bring people together instead of polarizing them. So they give context, basically. And the people that are giving that context, so in community radios or any other radio, especially in the countries we work with, are seen as trusted. And if these radios are, they are trusted to give facts. So if they stop polarizing and bring people together, which they often do through talk shows or sort of jingles or by inviting people from different groups that might have the conflict with each other, they bring a different perspective to the local communities and a perspective in which you don't harm the other.
Okay. Now we're doing this show partly as part of the UNESCO Remote Radio Week. And one of the questions they have is, how do you support the function of radio in these crisis situations? So give us a few ideas. How does the support that you bring to these radio, how does it work?
I think, now we're speaking about radio in times of crisis. And I think the radio remains an important tool because of the space that we are talking about. We are talking about countries where, there are multi-layers of crisis, economically, politically. So in terms of crisis, a health crisis like this, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about using what we have at hand and what has worked already in the past. With the COVID-19 response, the goal was to have a really fast response to the crisis so that, the population can have the right information and to protect themselves. So we were just using or providing support to the media organization that we work with based on their expertise, based on their knowledge from the previous health crisis that they have experienced. So we are supporting them financially. We are supporting them in terms of capacity building because the journalists need to be updated about the requirements on so the basic knowledge of the virus, so that they can speak about it or write about it.
Basically.
Exactly. And it's also in terms of materials, so equipment. So we many organizations don't have the equipment to provide the information to the public in terms of camera, even the face mask or like the hand sanitizer in the beginning of the pandemic. All of those elements is the way that we are supporting them.
Yeah, one of the things that you were talking about, Myanmar, actually a lot of the people that were working on the radio had to go abroad because of the military coup that took place.
Yes.
What are these people doing now? And what would be a way to support them?
We're currently actually supporting them by our safety fund. We have a report to respond fund, it's called, and that gives emergency support to journalists that have to reallocate, but also in all types of other conditions in which journalists need help. And the journalists in Myanmar, we supported, for example, with SIM cards for their mobile phones so that they still can report. We give them safety kits, the same as Gaelle mentioned, with face mask, hand sanitizer, so that at least they can be safe for the virus. So these types of things matter always if we give support to radio journalists. It's always safety, and it's basically always equipment. Depending, of course, on the crisis. But if you talk about floods or tsunamis or earthquakes, which happened in Nepal and Indonesia, you can imagine that equipment is basically washed away. So there we have a function to support in equipment so that the journalists and radio stations can be as quickly as possible be rebuilt.
One of the things that I heard about Myanmar is that actually a couple of people were relocated to Thailand and starting there a new operation from abroad.
Yes.
So that is also something that could happen, right?
Correct. Yeah, a creative hub, which gives a safe space. That's the most important thing, of course, in which the people can get psychosocial support, but in where they also can work. So they give access to computers, to internet, to mobile phones, so that they can record something, a podcast or a radio show, indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much. This was very enlightening. So let me summarize today's episode. We need a safe place. We need trust. We need good radio. We need good people. We need finance. We need face masks, etc. So all this gives you an example of how radio can support work in crisis. We think it's very important at Free Press Unlimited. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great conference. Bye-bye.